So God says, tell them exactly who the Antichrist is. Okie doke. I just hear this. Oh man. Exactly who the Antichrist is? The Antichrist is basically a clone of Jesus Christ. If you go back to, if you can find any information on it, under the pyramids of Giza, they've stored DNA from very influential people in history. So they can resurrect Jesus Christ through, I guess, back to Osiris. But, you know, this world's so weird. You know that cloning is so weird. You know that, like, they're obsessed with mocking and mimicking God's, like, DNA and biology. So the Antichrist is essentially the clone, the literal clone of Jesus Christ in the flesh on earth. So we don't have Jesus Christ. He comes back 3.5 years after the Antichrist reign, or 7. Some people think it's 7 years, but he's going to be actually a literal freaking literal clone of Jesus Christ. He's going to look like him. So people are going to have this kind of resonance about the way he looks, and he's going to sound like him. He's going to have a resonance in his voice. He's going to sound, his voice is going to sound so soothing, just like in your cellular memory of Jesus Christ. But he's going to do everything opposite of what Jesus Christ does. So, exactly who the Antichrist is basically like Christ in the flesh, who's going to do all the things that Jesus Christ wouldn't do. Jesus Christ wouldn't kill people the way that the Antichrist will kill people. This is basically like the father becomes the son. It's like a twin brother dynamic. It's like the brother that dishes out judgment. He does all the things that Jesus Christ wouldn't do. He wouldn't kill people. He gives us a lot of mercy. At some point, that mercy comes to an end and judgment begins. And then you get the Antichrist, who is going to pour judgment out onto the people based off of the end of the covenant. The Antichrist is going to mark the end of the covenant of Jesus Christ as basically like a twin brother. This is funny about the direwolf resurrection, the Romulus and the Remus, because it's this very similar relationship, Romulus and Remus, Christ and Antichrist. It's like a twinning aspect of a man who, it's almost like the two of them together equal God, even though Jesus was the two and the one, but he's not here. And he's coming back 3.5 to 7 years later, 3.5 or 7 years later. But in the meantime, the way that reality, the way that, spirit translates onto earth is God split himself into two. You see this over and over again. Cain and Abel, Julius Caesar and that asshole Augustus Octavian. Like, you see this throughout history. You had Tsar Nicholas and Vladimir Lenin. You had Osiris, and then, what was it, Set? This is the way God translates on earth, is he splits into two. One of them's mercy and one of them's death. But Jesus was the two and the one. This is why he was different. He was the two and the one. Jesus was God in the flesh, and he's going to come back after the reign of the Antichrist, after the bowls are poured out or whatever. It's like the Antichrist is basically like Christ, but doing the things that Christ wouldn't do. Hope this makes sense. So that's why so many people are going to be like, yeah, this is great. This is our dude. And some people are going to be like, yeah, this is great because God set the table for his son. God set the table for his son. How can he do that when Christ is so merciful? Send the Antichrist, right? Send the Antichrist in to do a job that Christ wouldn't do. That's it. That's all. Keep your faith in Jesus. Don't be deceived by the Antichrist. That's all he is. This is why he's like not so bad, but he's not your Christ. Not your dude, right? You know what I mean? Like, he's like not my Christ, but the Christ of those who are deceived. There is a school of thought that if people can be deceived, they need to be deceived as a means to create the kingdom, God setting the table for his son. These are mechanisms that are in place to purify the joint. And it only comes through dualism, through having the opposite, right? Through pouring out judgment, right? Daddy death, daddy life, daddy death. You got daddy life and daddy death. They both look alike and they sound alike. They don't act alike. And Jesus was the two in the one. God is omnipresent, and then as you get closer to the material world, he has to split into two. He has to split into two dualism, just like man and woman had to split into two. So we'll figure it out and we'll get there. So have no fear, but have faith through the covenant Jesus Christ made for us. And stand on that. You know, Lucifer is like the god of the material world, and Jesus is like the god of the spirit, right? But the spirit is God, triumphs all, right? You operate in the spirit, and people come after you. They want to like destroy you, but God has the final judgment because God controls both all these evil and all the good. So have no fear. Riley says the devil targets those closest to God, God targets those furthest away, yin and the yang. This is a perfect way of describing it. Appreciate you so much for saying this. I'm going to repeat it. The devil is going to target those who are closest to God, right? The devil targets those closest to God, but God has the final say in everything. And through the Holy Spirit and wisdom, you operate based on what God tells you to do, circumstantially, things you have no choice as a means to survival through circumstance, and God redeems all who had no choice through circumstance. God redeems all because of the predatory nature of the world. And then God targets those that are furthest away. It's yin and the yang. It's yin and yang. It's like as old as it's as basic as yin and yang. He's going to target those that are furthest away. And a lot of people like to pretend like they're so righteous, but they're so far from God. The Antichrist is the one who basically polarizes that, and then judgment can continue. Death is not judgment, right? Like death is not like the end of you, right? So it's not to say like, oh, if you die, you must have been evil. If you die, then you probably better off in this world for the most part. But at some point, it's going to be like, well, a lot of people are going to die because they were the furthest away from God. Leading up to that point, a lot of people die because the world is not like they're too good for the world, right? And then those people bring you closer to heaven, closer to God because you want to be closer to them. And then through that, you want to get closer to Jesus. You want to get closer to God because you want to be with them. You don't want separation from death. And this world is this weird limbo in between where you have both Christ and Antichrist operating. And then when the end of the covenant comes, it's going to create a world. God sent his table for his son. He's going to create a world where there is no more separation by death. It's the all conjoining, right? It's the kingdom conjoining. But it doesn't come without a lot of death and destruction, which is what the Antichrist does because that's his mechanism. That's God's mechanism for the Antichrist. So he's not all horrible. When he comes, I'm going to be like, that's not my Lord. But people are going to be like, oh, I want to worship this guy because I want to worship the world. But the world is not a good place because the world, people treat each other like commodities. They exploit each other. They treat each other like commodities. They want to kill those that are righteous. This is a world that killed the most righteous man in the world, Jesus Christ. If that's not proof within itself that this world is not a good place, what else is? What else is it going to take? You can create little heavens on earth, but you should know that this is not the final destination. No way. God's creating the final destination through birth and death, creation and destruction. And we're coming upon the destruction era, So that's why the Antichrist is going to come to sweep in like a big full sweep, like the Grim Reaper just sweeping it out. There's a mechanism for it. I think I made my point. All right, check you later.